Mr. Cohen, Mr. Cohen, Mr. Cohen.
Surrounded as he stepped out of the courthouse in New York today, Michael Cohen's admission had been straightforward. He lied to the U.S. Congress. Cohen, once Donald Trump's personal lawyer and confidant, had just made a stunner of a plea deal, pleading guilty to false and misleading statements last year about Trump's involvement in a giant real estate project in Moscow, something Cohen now says continued well into Trump's 2016 campaign for the White House. The lie, says court documents agreed to by Cohen, was to minimize links between the Moscow project and individual one, aka Trump, in hopes of limiting the ongoing Russia investigations. Critically, the deal struck with special counsel Robert Mueller comes just days after Trump gave written answers to Mueller on a series of questions on possible links between Russia and the 2016 Trump campaign. Trump's answers came before he'd have known how closely Cohen is cooperating with Mueller.
He's a weak person and not a very smart person.
On Cohen's plea deal today, Trump was blunt.
Very simply, Michael Cohen is lying.
That said, Trump then unexpectedly canceled a planned meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin set for this weekend's G20 in Argentina, citing Russian aggression in Ukraine 4 days ago. Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, Democrats had their own bottom line on Cohen's plea.
It means that when the president was representing during the campaign that he had no business interests in Russia, that wasn't true.
Michael Cohen's now also said to have spent some 70 hours meeting with special counsel investigators, which raises a couple more key questions. What else does Bob Mueller now know? And when will he act on it? Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
And for a little more insight on all of this, I'm joined by the CBC's Keith Bogue. What is the big picture here with this story, Keith?
Well, Rosie, one theory of what's happening that got a lot of traction today is that Robert Mueller is actually delivering his report through these indictments. That means Mueller is effectively doing an end run around the acting attorney general, who was appointed by Trump to oversee the investigation a few weeks ago, after Trump fired Attorney General Jeff Sessions. It might be Mueller's way of making sure the story comes out whether the acting attorney general likes it or not. Now, the evidence for this theory is in the amount of detail Mueller reveals in his documents. It's way more than he's legally required to. It's what's sometimes called a speaking indictment because it tells a story. And that's what we saw today. Michael Cohen's crime, lying to Congress, wasn't a particularly big deal, probably won't even affect his sentencing. But the story the indictment told about Trump, about how he continued to try to develop a business relationship with the Kremlin while he was running for president, that was a big deal.
Okay, so given that and given what Mueller seems to be doing here, what might we see next?
Well, we might get a lot more of the story as early as tomorrow. Remember, this week Mueller backed out of a cooperation agreement he had with Paul Manafort, Trump's former campaign manager. Mueller said Manafort had been lying to him and that he'd give a detailed account of those lies in his sentencing report, and that sounds like another speaking document might be on its way.
Okay, so more to come. Thanks for that, Keith. The CBC's Keith Bogue in Washington tonight.